I love this music. I didn't want to start, but it's time to start.
Hey everyone.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the stream. Sorry, I love that song too much. It was like the best vibe to start. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Open Projects, The Journey. I was gonna say the wrong title. My name is Ciro, and with me is Amel and Shema.
Hi everyone.
Thanks for joining us again on this live stream. Again, this is the second episode, so we are at the beginning of the journey on the creation of this open project, this game that we are creating with your help. It's going to be a long journey. It's going to be roughly 6 months, we predicted. So as I said, like, we're at the beginning of it, but we made some progress, and today we're gonna take a look at this progress. But first, I want to introduce the team again. And I want to start with Shema and Amel. So, Shema, you want to start?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Shema. I'm a creator advocate. I don't know if some of you saw me in the forums, on the threads. I was taking care of the UI, the wireframe, and many other things. So, hi.
Hello, Shema. And Amel?
Hi everyone, I'm Amel. I'm also a creator advocate. Today I will talk about scene loading. So you probably saw me on GitHub doing some commits there. And I was also replying a little bit on the level design and gray boxing threads.
Great.
Ciro, do you want to present yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Ciro, as usual. And I'm the head of creator advocacy. And I work with Shema and Amel on the Unity Open projects. We all work from out of Copenhagen. So here, right now, it's 6 p.m. Actually, fun fact. Shall we tell the fact?
Yeah.
You go, please.
So actually, I think we changed hours. I think it's Sunday or Saturday night, something like that. And actually, we thought that we still had 1 hour.
Yeah.
So right now it's 1 hour.
It's a funny fact because, like, the how do you call it, the daylight savings or something? Yeah. It changed in Europe, but not in the US. So we had this stream scheduled, US time, and so we thought we still had 1 hour and a half when we started setting up, and then we realized, and we were like, oh no, we have to be quick, and we were frantically setting up the stream. But here we are. It seems like everything is working. So let's start with it. So the first thing I wanted to do, because this is the second episode, but maybe there's some people that for them it's the first time that they join the stream. I wanted to recap what we're doing and basically what are we talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this thing. I want to show you first this video here. So who wants to present the project?
You can do it, sure.
Okay. So during this live stream, we're going to cover the first project of open projects. So we call it project number 1, very simply, because it doesn't have a title yet. And we're choosing the title, don't worry. It's not going to be called like this forever. But project number 1 is basically an action adventure game. And you're seeing the concept art on screen right now. The concept art for the characters, the concept art for some like environmental enemies, you would call them, and for some friends and NPCs. And basically, we built like a very, very short story, and now we're making the game. We're making the game with the help of the community. What else to say? As I said, it's called Action Adventure. The protagonist is this character here. He's a pig chef traveling the world and basically looking for like the ultimate flavors and recipes, cooking ingredients. And he travels the world with the help of this little phoenix chick that he has in his lantern, which is like his traveling companion. And then we have, again, other characters, NPCs. He gets on this island and he's basically joining this cooking festival where this chef on the right is kind of like the resident legendary chef. And so he's joining the cooking festival to impress this chef. And to impress the chef, he has to produce like an incredible recipe that he doesn't know about. So he's gonna try and research into what to create with the help of the locals, which you can see here on the left. We call them the townsfolk for now. They don't have a name yet. Did I say everything?
I think so. It's the new story, Chiro, because last time we had the live, we knew that we needed to change the story. So if I understand correctly, this is the new story that we thought about with the community.
Yeah, exactly. We received a lot of input and we changed the story quite substantially. So these two characters that you see on screen right now, they didn't exist 2 weeks ago when we made the last live stream. And obviously that created some change in the plans. You know, we kind of like got behind a little bit with art production, but we're catching up, and I'm gonna show you some art, during the course of this live stream.
I think we have one of the questions that we can answer to inform more about the game. So one of the question is, will it be a third-person player or first-person player?
It will be a third-person game, basically. So we will see the character from kind of like from the outside, not through his eyes, but we'll see the character through a camera that can orbit around the player. Just 1 second, because somebody's saying that they hear us an echo.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Let's see if it's a strong echo. No, I'm just checking the settings. Yeah. You wanted to say something else about the game?
Actually, no, I think you said the whole story. And the story behind the concept in general is that we wanted, in this time that we couldn't travel to see the community, we wanted to interact with them more by making this game with them, looking at what they do, what are their challenges, and help them, and at the same time deliver them later with some tutorials and some presentations about the subjects that they already treated. I don't know if I made myself clear here.
So basically you're saying like the whole kind of like purpose of the open projects is to connect with the community. And that's the plan, right? Is like creating this project with people, not just us making it, which is obviously a challenge in itself, right? We're experimenting this process of we have the forums, which we're using as a collaboration tool, and there's some many threads, and in each thread we discuss one part of the project, and then people join like different features. And I saw a couple of threads, and I want to show them later, where people are actually collaborating with each other on one feature, and kind of like working on each other's code, and it's super fascinating and really nice. Okay, so where are we with the game? I want to show you just a couple of things. We have basically the character in the game right now. We have defined, it still works like this. Unfortunately, we don't have any animation. So we have defined the look a little bit. As you can see, this is the toon shader on the character and on the environment. And we have a character controller, a fully working character controller, and we're going to talk about the state machine that powers the character during this live stream. And then on the art side, we have this thing here, which is another scene on another branch of the game. And in here, we're kind of like developing the look of the game, the final look. So as you can see, we have the pig chef as a 3D character. The toon shader supports extra lighting. So you see here, I was creating a light to show you the effect. We have one of the critters, the rock character to the right, is one of the characters populating this island. And then, as you can see, we have a few pieces of environment in the background. And I'm going to show you in the editor later on this stuff. So this is where we are. Again, the progress is still like a bit early, right? As I said, we still have just a moving character and some art on the side, and we're at the point where we're going to merge these two things. But I also wanted to show where to find the project. So if I remove this video, you will see on screen right now what we call the public roadmap.
Yeah.
Shema, you want to mention what this is? So I don't talk all the time.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I wanted to show it. Just 1 second. I don't know if... are you seeing me now?
You want me to share your screen?
Just 1 second. I think I will share my screen and then continue talking from there. But I would just need 1 small second. And now we can share it.
Okay.
So let's go to the roadmap. So as Ciro told you that we can see the advancement of our game in the roadmap. You can go check the README if you want to read some documents, or if you want, for example, to have the game flow or anything that you want to see that is happening. These are some cards that you can click on, and they contain tasks that you can have. Let me just click on one task. So, for example, this task is assigned to the community, and that's why it has the blue icon here. And it says that some people of the community are taking care of this task. And you can go to the link in the thread and then discuss with people for later, maybe propose a pull request or a solution to it. So this is how you can find informations about the game. I don't know if someone wants to add something about this.
No, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I'll move back to our cameras. Whoops, sorry. So there we go. So so this is the roadmap. Other locations where you'll find the game is, as I was saying, on the forums. So on the forums is where the main discussion happens. And as I said, there's plenty of threads. Right now, I think we have 108 threads. So there's a lot of them. Wow. And basically, the ones marked official, for example, let's take a look at this one. They are the ones where we're discussing just one feature. And then people are basically, hypothesizing how to make that feature, and posting like bits of code, as you can see, and giving feedback to each other. And obviously we are responding to this feedback here, with basically we're making the game as we go. Like some things we haven't imagined yet how they work, and we're coming up with them as we go. And that's kind of like the challenge. And that's why sometimes it can feel like we're a bit slow in this process, because the process is actually happening right now. And then the third part, which is very important to this project, is the GitHub repository. The GitHub repository is basically the beating heart, is where the project lives, and is hosted on our organization. The link is obviously available on the forums, on the roadmap, and I think Carol, our community manager, she's sharing it in the chat right now. And the GitHub is where the project lives, and is where basically you would make your contributions. So if you want to contribute some new feature, you would make what is called a PR, a pull request, and that will go here, and then we are in charge of reviewing that pull request and making sure that it works, that it makes sense, and that if it does, then we pull it into the game. So here you can see that we have 20 pull requests open, 64 have already been closed, and it's a big number. And all of these pull requests, as you can see, some of them have a conversation attached. So you can also see like the history of what happened on these pull requests. So it's a really interesting process.
And also, if you don't make the pull request, you can still like discuss that pull request or give suggestions or review it, put comments, right?
Yeah. So you don't only participate with code, you also participate with ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Or you can also review code.
Yeah, review code.
For instance, in this mega pull request, you can see the discussion that's going on, and people are basically commenting on each other code and making suggestions on how to solve something. So there's 27 more comments here. So it's a really long conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's that's more or less the thing that we're working on. Anything to add? I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. And if you have any additional questions, I think you can find the answers either on the roadmap, on the README part, or in the threads. We have also detailed threads that explain how to contribute and how to start contributing to this game.
We actually have also a Discord channel, right? Like on the official Unity Discord, we have a channel dedicated to open projects. So if anybody wants to have like a quick reply, you can go there and ask that to just the community, and we will reply, and some other people will reply as well.
Exactly.
Shall we show some new stuff? Shema, do you want to start?
Oh yeah, okay, I will start. I will share again my screen.
Mm-hmm. Tell me when you're ready. And what are you going to show us?
Yeah, I'm ready. Actually,
ready?
today yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, you can find in the roadmap what you need to do and participate with opening new threads or new discussions. And this past 2 weeks, we took care of the wireframing, the UI wireframing. And it's not only to create like UI and just UI screens, but it's also to understand how your game interact, how your user interact with your game. So, and while we were doing that, we understood that we had some missing informations either about the inventory or how the game uses the items that we collect and things like that. But we will see that later. So for now, this is the Miro board actually that we are using to create the UI. It's not public yet. Right now, I'm just putting together some of the diagrams that we've seen in the threads. Sorry, let me close this. In the thread about the wireframing. So if you can see, these are discussions about how the UI will be displayed, and some of them propose diagrams. And when we see that, we discuss it, and then the final result, we take it and we put it in the Miro board for now. So
there's a lot of words in that thread, Shema.
Oh yes. And actually
long.
this is not the only thread that takes care of the UI, because also we need to take care of the dialogue, the inventory system thread, the story, the cooking, the story, and etc., because it's very intricate, and that's why we need something that shows us what we need to see. Like it's a diagram that it's I mean it's easier to understand than words, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
but as you can see, we also need some comments about it. So let me start by showing where we are at right now. So if I go to presentation mode, I'll put it like this. And as you can see, this is the first screen, which is the main menu. These buttons and this frame for the image or this frame for the title are not the final position. We just need to see that these information will be in this scene. So right now we have buttons for new game, settings, credits, and close button. We also have the main scene, the main scene that is animated that will be in the background, and we also have the title, and this is the main screen. If we go to the other screen, we will see that once we have like a saved game, a new button will appear, and it will show us the last saved game. if we go to the settings, we will see that we have 4 parts in the settings: the audio, the language, the input, and the graphics, because we know that we will have a language for the subtitles, and also back button, because it's normal, and a save or reset button to reset the informations about the master sound, the music, and the sound effects volumes, to reset them at default. So this is for the audio. This one is for the languages. We want to change the game language from English to any other language, and I think that later we will be using the localization package. Also here we have the save, the reset, and the back button. Then we have the input, and here, while developing, while thinking about this screen, I had a comment from Chiro that asked me about the clicks, because we are actually going to use not only the keyboard, but also the joypad. So we were thinking how to edit the key binding using the joypad, and whether we needed the mouse to use in these menus or not. So I think this will be a discussion to have later on.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss it now, Chiro, or later?
No, I just wanted to mention it in more detail. Like, but I mean, you said basically almost everything. No. The point is, this game is supposed to be a desktop game, or if you want, a console game. My idea was always to use a gamepad, but I'm also very much aware that not many people have a gamepad when they're using a PC. Do you have a gamepad?
No.
Do people in the chat have a gamepad? I'm curious to hear. Please put yes or no in the chat. So the point is, like, we want to make sure that people can test the game, even if maybe they're in a train or something and they want to just quickly check out something in the game, and it needs to feel good to play. So some people requested to have the camera movement through the mouse, and we're gonna do that because it's very logical. For the menus, my personal opinion is that we should stick to a menu which is meant to be for gamepad and keyboard and not the mouse. What do you think?
And my idea is to have the mouse, just because it's simpler to just hover over something and move it than just looking at your keyboard, just because when you are using a mouse, using the computer, you just reach for the mouse automatically when you need to go somewhere in the screen. So it's better, I think, to have the mouse and use it to interact with the menus.
Okay. So I vote for no mouse. Shema, you vote for?
Mouse.
Amel, you decide.
So I'm gonna ask people from the chat, what do you think? No, one thing, like, now Shema gave her arguments why she wants a mouse. Why you don't want a mouse, Gio?
Me?
Yeah.
Because I think when you make a UI for the mouse, you make it for the mouse, right? And if you want to make a UI for the controller or for the keyboard, you need to think it in a different way. And when you want to support both, it not always works. Like, we need to do double the work. And my thought is that if we make it for the keyboard and the gamepad, we can always make it work for the mouse as well, even later, right? Because the mouse is kind of like a more powerful device. You can just hover on things and click on them like you would. Why are you smiling, Amel? You don't trust me?
No. And I think both arguments are valid, right? But so let us know in the chat, what do you think? And tell us why. Like, do you prefer with
Actually, let us know on the forums.
On the forums,
we have a controls thread where somebody already launched the discussion. I'm looking at it now. I want to say the name of the person, if I can find the thread. There we go. It was Gordon Arber. So he launched this dilemma, and now we're like, okay, maybe we need to, to do that.
Yeah,
anyway,
so that-
Shema, back to
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So that was one of the issues. And as I said, this wireframe is not to decide where each component, where each UI element needs to be in the screen, because this will maybe be modified later by another artist vision, but it's to understand how to interact with your game without having to develop it. It's just to see, okay, now I will click on this, I will just decrease the outline thickness. So for example, this one is for the graphics. It will decrease the outline thickness of the shader that we are using for our characters and in our game in general. We also have, oh, sorry, I didn't change this. So this is not a game language. Oh, okay. This is the resolution. So, as always, save, reset, and back button. The next one actually would be the in-game screens, but for the in-game, and because we don't have like a clear vision to the gameplay, we can't think about something in the in-game scene, but we can like guess what will be in the inventory, and this actually fired like a big discussion about how the inventory system will be. So in here we decided that for the inventory we will have either the customization item. These are items that the character will wear, but they will not be like a special custom or something. They will be either a bracelet that we can add to the arm, to the bone, to the arm bone, or a hat for the head, or maybe changing the color of the texture for the apron, etc. Something like that, simple. Also, for the ingredients that we collect from the world, or we collect when we interact with a character, these ingredients, we will use them to create a dish to maybe eat later. So the ingredients and the utensils would be in the inventory system, and as you can see here, an item will be characterized by its name, by a preview image in here, by the information about it that we will see in here in this part of the UI, and by an action button. Actually, the action button here depends on what is the element that we are selecting exactly. So we can either equip it, create the dish, or eat the dish. So
Shema, sorry to interrupt you one sec.
Yeah.
Everybody in the chat is asking, what's this software that we're using to do the wireframing?
Okay, so we are using Miro, which is a website that you can, it's a web app that you can find just by clicking Miro.com, I think. I'm not sure about the link for now, just...
anyways, Miro. It's easy to
so
find.
Miro.com, and you can find you can use it to create your own diagrams.
Mm-hmm. It's not part of Unity, it's not something that connected to us.
Yeah, exactly. This is the inventory, and just to show you how it looks when you are selecting multiple items, let us go to the next one, and we will see here that when you have multiple items selected, you will see them in preview, and you will see the result dish in the preview as well as the item descriptions in here. For now, this is what we have for the inventory. We are still having a discussion about the dish creation, the cooking, about the inventory system, and I think that we have some cool PRs about it. And also, we are still discussing the UI wireframing, so if you want to join the discussion, please do. Also, this is the last part. This is a generic pop-up with a title, a close button that can be there or that can be removed if we don't need it in the pop-up. Also, a description, an icon for the pop-up, and either 1, 2, or no buttons. So as you can see here, there is a note that explains everything about it. So yeah. Also, we still have the credits, but it's not it's not populated yet because we don't know yet how we will have the credits. So for now, this is the wireframe. Sorry, ML.
Yeah, go on.
So for now, this is the wireframing of the UI and how to interact with the game. And yeah, to you, ML.
Yeah, this looks great. I'm checking if Chiro, do we have any questions in the chat about?
I was keeping an eye on the chat. Yes.
Yeah, I was looking at.
I mean,
now.
some people are commenting
Yeah.
to do both control styles, so both mouse and keyboard and gamepad for the menus. Of course, everybody wants more. Okay, fine. Then I guess they decided for us.
Yeah. Nice. And they decided for me. I win.
Somebody also mentioned using Rewired, but we're not going to use external assets because this is an open source project. We couldn't use external assets. If we did, we would be sharing some, paid assets, which we can't do. So we will either code everything from scratch, or luckily Unity finally released a new input system which is going to help in the adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thanks, Shema, for the update on the wireframing on the UI. So that's in progress. We're making some progress. And when is it going to be ready? I want it on my desk tomorrow.
Today, midnight.
Well, it's ready for now.
I want it on my desk at 6 p.m. today, which is in an hour or half an hour ago, depending on how you see it.
Exactly. So yeah, if people from the chat, if people from the community help me, I will be able to do it tomorrow.
Awesome.
Somebody's asking, are we using the new input system? Yes, we are. That's what we're going to be using for both the menus and the gameplay. Any other questions? Shall we also take a small break to answer some questions from before?
Yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick some questions from that Carol selected for us. So somebody was asking, who's the artist behind the concept art? And I'm gonna put the concept art on screen for a second. So the artist is called Jesse Turner. He collaborated with us at the beginning of the project. We commissioned some concept art from him. He's on the internet, on Instagram. You'll find him as Drawbarian. So not barbarian, but Drawbarian. And he made all these concepts that you're seeing right now.
These are very beautiful, actually.
Yeah, actually, there's a character here which we haven't mentioned. The one with the sitar or with the lute.
The bard, yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna explain what the bard does?
I don't. Actually, I'm not sure. In the latest story, what it does exactly.
Just the same as before. So he's just like kind of like a
companion.
And also like he acts as a kind of like as a story progression to like he explains the story at the beginning and then gives you like hints if you're stuck or stuff like that. And you will find him in different locations, and he will sing these poems about the island and the folklore of the island, and give you like hints on how to proceed. Then
so
other questions. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying he's a friend, like not an enemy or.
Yeah, he's a friendly character, an NPC, I guess. Other question. Somebody says, are you the only three who work on the project? I mean, except who follows you? I guess they mean the community. Yes and no. We have collaboration with other people at Unity. There's especially two people, Richard Fine and Miley Hollenberg, which have done a lot of work until now. You will see them on GitHub a lot. They review code and approve PR, so they've been super, super helpful. And other people at Unity, sometimes they jump into the project. Like somebody from URP jumped to help me, Andre McGrail. to help with the shader. So we're gonna get some collaboration, some spot collaborations here and there.
Yeah.
Other questions? Will there be any form of procedural generation? No, I don't think so. We will.
I don't think
make
so.
everything by hand. Yeah. I do art, and I was wondering, will we be able to contribute to creature design? Maybe not main character, but maybe the other NPCs and enemies. It's really welcome. I mean, the only challenge with introducing new creatures is that somebody then has to model them, animate them, and stuff like that. But you're very welcome to create like concept art. Actually, we have some concept art task coming up there. I wanted to reveal later, so you kind of like spoiled it. But no, yeah. Okay, let's move on. Amel, are you ready to show us something else?
Yes, you can see my screen. And
Yeah.
I guess now we'll talk about events and the loading systems, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I wanted to start actually from Miro as well by showing you this diagram that we have for the different environments. And we can see here that we have this beach environment, glade, forest. So you can see that we have those different locations. And of course, to be able to move from one location to another, we need to create some solid system to load those scenes. So one thing is probably people will think of an obvious solution, which is using singleton pattern. So I want to start by mentioning why we are not using this. First, because this solution using singleton allows rigid connections between the systems that you have in your game. So it's not modular. And those systems cannot exist separately. So they will always depend on each other. And this is, of course, hard to maintain and hard to reuse. So that's why we decided to do something based on scriptable objects and events. So if you're not familiar with these scriptable objects or events or both, we are going to quickly give an overview of this. So I'm going to jump into the editor already. And I'm going to go to my scene, this scene called beach. And I go to the main character, that is the pig. And you can see that we have different components and these different scripts. And all these are mono behaviors. So they are components attached to the game object. What we are talking about today are scriptable objects, which are not attached to any game object. So they don't live in the scene or in the inspector here. You see them in the assets folder. So you will see them as any other asset. So if I go to scriptable object folder we have created, you can see that we have locations, for instance. And we can create them from here, and this you could enable it from the script. So for instance, I can create a new location, which is a scriptable object, and this new location will store data. So we usually use scriptable objects to store data, and you can, this is an example that I will explain later, but you can see that we can here, for instance, have a scriptable object for each location. So the forest, you can put a short description, the name of the scene, and specify all the data related to that. So these are the scriptable objects. And now we're going to use these with events. So I thought that I would show you these diagrams to make it easier to get started, I would say, and understand. So you can see that the event that we were talking about is here, the scriptable object. And we can see that we have here an action or a trigger that will raise this event. So to make it easier to understand, let's use an example. If I want to exit the game, and I'm going to press a button to exit the game. So this is my action. It's a button, I will press it, it's a mono behavior, and this will raise an event. What do we mean by raise? Raise is like broadcasting this event in the whole game. So you would say, okay, now the game should exit, like we raise this event. And we have, in the other hand, this other mono behavior, which is the event listener, that is listening to the event. So basically, the event listener doesn't know about this action or button or trigger. And this action and trigger doesn't also know about the event listener. They are two independent systems. And there is this event that is a scriptable object that acts as an anchor between them. So we easily just raise the event, we listen to it from another side. And I wanted to mention that you can do this, of course, from different scenes. So this is an example scene, and it could be the same or another scene. And once you heard that event, as an event listener, you are going to call the different responses that you have. I'm going to show an example of this in the editor to make more sense for it. I'm going to remove this, we don't need it. So if I go to my main menu, and you can see that I have in my canvas here the exit button. Of course, this is not the final UI. So if you look into the exit button, you can see that when we press it on click, we have this scriptable object. And as I said, these are assets, so you can drag and drop them from any scene without any problem. And then I will choose my function here, my method, which is the raise method. So here I am in the main menu scene doing something, which is raising this event. And I will actually show you where I'm listening to this event. In this example, we are doing this in a scene called scene loader. So here the game exit listener is basically listening to that same event. So we just drag and drop it. And then we do call the methods that we want to call when we hear that event. So you can see that they are in totally two different scenes, and we are able to exit the game easily.
So Amel, just for context, what is the role of this scenes loader scene?
Yeah, so that's a good question, actually. The scene loader scene is the scene that we put here to hold this location loader that I will talk about, that is mainly managing the loading and unloading process. And this will be always open. So every time we load new scenes, like the forest, for instance, it's going to be loaded additively. And this scene basically doesn't contain any like 3D models or assets that we are going to actually see. It's just here to, make sure that all the scenes are loaded and somehow like supervise all these.
So basically, when we launch the game, this is the first scene that we see.
Yeah. So
Okay.
when we start now, like actually we can do it if I press play. Yeah, so here we can see our main menu, and I can actually press start, and I can move to my first scene. And you can see that I have here a trigger, and when I enter it, I'm moving to the next scene. So here we are like just testing the scene loading system that we are talking about. Now, before diving more...
Sorry, can you repeat it again? And just, I wanted to check if the scene in the hierarchy changes.
Yeah, of
like
course.
If you click on play another time.
I'm going to show this. So if we click on start, we can see that we have the beach scene loaded.
Okay.
And now, for instance, to the forest scene, we can see that beach is unloaded and forest is loaded. And this is
nice.
the scene loading system. And it's all based on scriptable objects and events. And I'm going to explain more in details. So now I just wanted to show a simple example of the exit. I'm going to go back to the diagram just to give you more other examples so we can understand. So if I move here to the events example, it's not complicated, it's just like too much examples, but there are 3 different simple examples. So the first one is the one we just talked about, which is like pressing exit button, we raise the event, we listen to it, and we call the response. Okay, but then what if I want to pass a parameter in my raise method, right? I mean, I might need this. This is a good example of using an int. So if I want to unlock an achievement in my game, I would say maybe I will give the index of that achievement, for instance, which is an int. So I need to have this other method, raise int, that takes the parameter that I raise from my mono behavior. I have also a scriptable object listening to this, the listener listening to this event raised, and then I call the response. And then I wanted to show the example that is a slightly more complex, and it's the one that we're going to focus on today because it talks about scene management. It's the one that we use when we enter that trigger. So when we showed now the scene, we move from beach to forest location, we enter that trigger. So this is our action, I would say. And this will raise an event by taking 2 parameters. So the first parameter is the game scenes that we want to load. So if I am in the forest and I want to load any other location, I would pass it as parameter. And I created a Boolean to say if we want to actually see a loading screen or not. So maybe if I'm going from the main menu to the game, I want to show a loading screen. but maybe between the two different locations, I don't want to. So this is totally flexible. And as well, I wanted to mention that the game scene is an array. So it's possible to have multiple scenes loaded at once. For now, we are only using one scene, but in case we want to change this later and put multiple scenes, the current system actually supports that. So once we raise that and we have this event raise it about load location, we have this location loader script that is listening. And you can see that here I'm not calling any responses for a reason, just because we decided to put the location loader to act as a listener, but at the same time contain the different methods that we want to call. And the reason why we did this is because we are only using this once. So we don't really need to use it anywhere else. So we thought it's better to put everything together in one script. But those two, for example, that I mentioned as exit game or unlock, they could be used in any other way. Like you could only, you don't only need to use them with exit or when you have an achievement. You can use them no matter if you have any int you want to pass as a parameter, or if you want to use a void event, which means an event with no parameter.
So these are basically generic listeners that you can attach to any object.
Totally. And then I want to focus on this example, which is the last one, the one about the scene. So if I move here, we can see that I'm going from an example scene. I could either press a button to start the game, or I can reach the end of the scene by going into a trigger. Again, we raise, the event is called load location, and then we listen to it from any other scene, which I think I already explained. But what I wanted to explain here is what this game scene is, because this is not something by default in Unity, right? So this is scriptable object that we have created. And from those scriptable objects, we are creating two instances or two children, I would say, that inherit from that parent class. So a game scene is a parent class that contains the general information we have about any scene, like the name, the description, so everything that is common between any scene, no matter if it's a location or a menu. And then we have those scriptable objects that inherit from that one. And location, for instance, will contain information that are specific to locations, like enemy count, for instance. If you have a number of enemies in a certain location, we can also have those that are specific to menus, like the menu type. And here I just give examples. So these are what we use as a parameter here for our raise methods.
So Amel, basically here you're using scriptable objects for two different use cases, right?
Yes.
Like one is holding data. The ones at the bottom, they're holding data about the scene. And the ones at the top are, did you mention before, an anchor? Like
the event acts as an anchor between those two elements, like those two many behaviors that we have. Yeah. So we can store that, but we can also use them like as anchors.
Cool.
And this is the power, I would say, of scriptable objects, and that's why we love them. So I want to show the editor, because this looks too, I usually love to show diagrams because it makes things more simple to understand, but I also believe like it's time to dive and see that in action. So we are in the scene loader scene, and you can see that we have this location loader that I said acts as the listener. So you can see that we have the load event here that we are listening to in the inspector. And this is actually super flexible, because even if you are an artist or level designer and you want to load and unload scenes, you don't have to like code things manually or open the scripts. You can just drag and drop those events, and you only need to somehow understand a little bit the architecture that I was explaining in the diagrams. So here I'm going to double click in this location loader. I'm not going to like go line by line on the scripts, but it's good to dive into this and see like an overview. So here you can see that when we have the methods to load, we have the methods also to set an active scene. So this actually, I mentioned it here in the start. I can see that we are using this for lighting and skybox, because if you don't set the scene as active, you will see that it looks a little bit darker. So this is important to take in consideration. We have also a method to unload the scenes. So if we move to a new location, we want to probably unload the previous scenes that we had loaded. I also check the load state, because every time I want to make sure that I don't load the scene twice. So I always do this check before loading any scene. And this one is an enumerator that you use, so a coroutine to keep track of the progress on the loading bar. And this is just to exit the game simply. So this is what our location loader does. And of course, again, it's an open project. So you can see this on GitHub and have a closer look on how everything is working here. Also, I wanted to show the different events. So this is the load event we were talking about. As you can see, it takes these two parameters that we mentioned. But we can also talk about a void game event, which is the one that we use for the exit. So it has no parameters. And all of these are, of course, scriptable objects. And we have also an int game event. So we add this parameter if we want to have an int passed here.
These are the anchors that we mentioned before, right?
Yeah, these are the anchors that we mentioned basically. If I go back here, these events that we mentioned. So that's what we see here.
Maybe anchor is kind of an official term, unofficial term, sorry. Nobody uses it, but...
Yeah, but I think it's like an accurate description of like the purpose, I would say, of using it.
It's especially when they're connecting two scenes, right? It's something that connects. Maybe it's a link, you could call it. I don't know.
Yeah. We also so I just showed those scriptable object events. I just wanted to show the listeners. So as I said, for the location loader, we use the same script, but for int, for instance, we are using a different script to listen. And this is quite flexible because if you look into it, as I mentioned, actually I want to show it in the editor. If we look at it in the editor, the game exit listener, you can see that it's quite general. Like you can just add this component, this mono behavior, and then drag and drop the event that you want to listen to. So that's why the name is not really specific. Like it's not game exit event listener. No, it's a void event listener. And this is like a particular example that we have here, which is the game event exit. If I go back to my scripts, we have also the one for the void. It's more or less the same, just this one. Of course, we added this Unity event in to be able to pass the parameter. In the documentation, we can see more examples of this. You can also pass 2 or even 3 or more parameters if you want. For now, we just stick to this because that's what we need in the project, and we will, of course, add more if we need them. And I guess that's it. I just wanted to show also the game scene, scriptable object. So as I said, this contains everything that is common between menu or locations. If I go to menu, for instance, you can see that we have the type that is specific to the menu, or the location that is the enemy counts that are specific to the location. And now if I open this again in my scene, let me just press play so to just see the whole flow again. So here again, we have the main menu loaded. We start, and now we have the beach loaded. We enter the trigger. This is raising an event that another game object is listening to, and it takes care to load the forest. And this is like the whole scenario, I would say. Yes, so one thing that I wanted to point, and I think it's pretty important since this is an open Unity project and we didn't do this alone. Of course, the community is helping us a lot. And I want to show in particular an example of something the community helped us with when it comes to the scene loading. You can see that I have those scriptable objects that I created, which represent the different scenes. The way we used to have it before, we used to have a scene name as string. And now what we have from a new contribution is we are able to use the ones that we have in our build settings. So you can see all the ones that are in the build settings, you have them as an option here, and you can select it directly. This is super powerful because now we have less risk, I would say, of making a mistake by misspelling or mistyping a character or something. And I want to show this in GitHub. So if I go here, I want to thank Charles X Machina for this amazing contribution. So if you look here, he put screenshot, he explained what he added, and then I really love, like, it always opens discussion. So here I want to thank as well Hiago Oliveira for, he put a comment, he's trying to helping to review here. Miley from Unity is also helping. And you can see that we have this discussion, and then in the end, everyone is okay with this solution, and we decide that it's good to add in the project. And here you can see that it's merged. So this has been merged, and as you can see today in the solution that I showed, it's super useful. And thank you guys for those contributions. And I think, Chiro, you will soon talk about a huge contribution that we have from the community, right?
Yeah. But I also wanted to mention, Amel, and it's great that you actually have shown the PR directly on GitHub, because what I want to say is that this contribution from Charles Ex Machina, his real name, Carlos Eduardo Perez Villanueva, it's great because it's such a tiny thing, and it's basically a great entry point for whoever looks at this project and sees like this huge thing, and maybe it's a bit scared of like contributing a whole system, but maybe they know how to do editor scripting, and that's what Charles or Carlos did, right? And he just made this very tiny PR, 3 files changed, I think one of which is like a meta file, so basically it's just like one file, and and that's in the game now, and it's gonna be under the eyes of everybody who's gonna be working with scenes in this game. So it's a great contribution, I think, even if it's very tiny.
Yeah, I really think it's great because it helps us like avoid mistakes when it comes to scene naming, etc. So it's really good. And again, I really love like to see people contributing and discussing this. It's really so exciting. And do we have any questions maybe about the scene loading system or events in general? Is there anyone in the chat also that has some questions? Let us know. And I guess
let's see questions about the
I don't think I've seen some questions.
I've seen a few.
This.
So somebody's saying, I'm a bit confused about scriptable objects and I don't really know anyone to ask about. I'm making this game. Yeah, I mean we can't help right now with a third-party game. In any case, don't forget that if any of these might sound confusing, and obviously this was a very short description, but don't forget that you can find this code on GitHub, so you can just go to GitHub and grab it and inspect it. The whole project is available for download. The code is visible on GitHub. It's browsable, and you can actually use it in your own project as well, right?
And we have a thread actually for the scene loading, so feel free guys if you have like any suggestions or any improvements, or this might actually change. Maybe the system we want to make it to change a few things in the future, because of course the game is not final yet. So feel free if you want to add any contribution or PRs, and maybe discuss this first in the threads. And also ask questions, like if you watch this again, or you are watching this and you're not watching it live, feel free to leave a comment or a question in the threads, and I will be happy to answer this.
Actually, one thing that we want to introduce, which we haven't done yet, Ahmed, we were talking about this. I want to show the roadmap for a second. One thing that we want to introduce is that whenever we pull something in, so let's say, for example, we have here some tasks, right? And we have the audio system. Or let me think. Yeah, inventory system. Right now, we have a link to the forum thread where people are discussing the thing. Sometimes when we have a PR, which ends up making into the game, what we want to start doing is to implement here a link to that PR, so that whoever is looking at the project can also look at things that has been done, and then directly look at the contribution, because sometimes once the code is merged, it's a bit hard to find. But if you see the PR, then you kind of like have a photograph, of what was done and what was discussed, and you can actually look inside the files and see the code. So we want to start doing that.
Yeah, I think someone actually mentioned this in the threads, and we thank them also for giving ideas on how to like organize better.
Yeah, that's right. Great. It's a community suggestion, this one as well. You're right.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, thanks for that. I'll remember the name. We'll find it on the forums in a second.
Yeah, we have an.
I think it's my turn.
Yeah, I think it's your turn, Chiro. I'm really excited to hear more about. I don't want to spoil. You want to say it?
Yeah,
it's something that is using scriptable objects.
Wow, what a surprise. Yeah, so I wanna start talking about another contribution, super cool one, which is called State Machine. A State Machine is basically we actually went on quite a while on this topic. It took us almost like 3 weeks to choose one because we got so many contributions for a state machine. So what is a state machine? A state machine is basically a construct that you use a lot in games where something, an object or a character or a situation can have different states and can have only one state at a time. So usually the object is in one state and then something happens and the object moves to another state. And this is very typical of characters when you have, for example, the idle state where the character is not moving and then you press the controls and the character starts advancing and now they're in the walking state. So you have this machine that can move between different states that are connected with each other. And they are connected through what is called transitions. And state machines, you have like a plenty of ways to make state machines. You have you actually have one state machine in the Unity editor, which is the animator, right? Mechanim is a state machine for animation, but we wanted a state machine that was specifically for gameplay. So we examined a few solutions. I actually proposed Bolt, right, which now we have in Unity as a kind of like an easy way to make a very generic state machine. But then we decided to go with something that was actually simpler in some way, and that was community made. And we got a lot of contributions. We got, I think, 7 PRs that were valid. So I was like browsing this sea of code and I was like, okay, this looks super cool. There was one by a user called Neon Age. He had like a super cool inspector. Another user, Kay Castagnini, he created like a very interesting transition table. So all of the state machines that I was analyzing, each one of them had something cool. In the end, I ended up choosing one from a user called Davesky. And I'm going to show you that one right now. So let me go into Unity. So if I go to the character controller scene and I press play, you will see how the state machine in action works. So this is the character, I'm moving around, but the thing right now is not just one script, it's a state machine. And if I select the character, you will see here to the right that I have a script called state machine. And right now the script is telling me that I'm the state called idle. And if I start moving, he moves between like different states. So he's like jump ascending, descending, and then he's gonna be walking and stuff like that. And if you analyze the way the state machine works, basically you have this component, and then if you click here, you have again scriptable objects, and these scriptable objects in here are basically both data and behavior, and I'm going to show you how they're organized. So let me go to Miro again actually and show you how this state machine is organized. Basically, as I said, you have at the start you have the game object for the character, which has a few components attached. It has the character component, the character controller, which is the one that comes with Unity, the built-in one, which we're using. And then it has a component called state machine, which our user from the community made. The state machine, as I've shown you here in Unity, here is connected to an initial state. So this state machine is connected, as you can see, to a default state, which is a scriptable object. And then from here, these are all scriptable objects. So all of the structure of the state machine and the way the state machine moves around between states is all built on scriptable objects. So for instance, we have the idle state, which is a scriptable object, connected to a transition, which is called start walking, which is connected to a condition. And the condition checks some stuff, like in this case, it checks if you're moving or not. If the condition is true, then the transition sends you to another state, which is the walking state. And that's basically the main structure. And then from the walking, you have another transition which can move you back to the idle state. So as you can see, we have two states and two conditions that connect them with each other. And these conditions, they both analyze these transitions, they both analyze one condition. And then for each state, you can also have something else, which is the actions. Obviously, idle is not doing much, but the walking state has two actions. It has one called calculate the movement vector, and one to move the character itself. So the actions are executed in a list. First, you calculate the movement vector, and if you see in my diagram, what this is doing is it's going to take the movement vector from one of the components. And then the other action here is going to read that resulting movement vector. And once it has read that vector, it applies it to the character controller. So basically the idea is that the state machine is here and is made of scriptable objects. So they are kind of like objects that live separate from the character. And the character itself is here. It's a game object with its own components. And what these scriptable objects do is that they operate on the components, and the components hold like unique data. Why is that? Because obviously, if you were storing the data in the scriptable objects, like for example the position of the character, then every character will move, they will be positioned in the same place, right? If we have three, for example, townsfolk, they will be in exactly the same spot. So we can't do that. So the position has to be on the game object itself. For instance, the character component will hold a reference to the input of that frame where the character is moving, or how much health does he have and stuff like that. So this is a holder of data. And then the scriptable objects produce the behavior. And that's the solution that Davesky created for us. And now if I go to Unity, I can show it to you in the context of the editor, kind of like what Amel did before. So again, this is the game object. You have the character controller here, character script, state machine script, and the state machine script has a reference to this scriptable object called idle. If I click on idle, I select the scriptable object, and now I see here that I have the actions and the transitions. You remember I showed you before the actions and the transitions. The transition is this one. So idle does a couple of things, and then it can transition to two different states. It can transition to start walking if I start moving, or it can transition to begin jump if I press the jump button. If I go to begin jump, again, you can see how this transition is organized. So begin jump is a transition that wants to go to another state called jump ascending, and it is, it happens as long as I press the button. If the button is this is begin jump, sorry. If I press the button, I go to ascending, and then so forth. So if I go to ascending, then I have descending, which relies on when I stop pressing the button, and so forth. So all of these scriptable objects are connecting with each other in a kind of like a network of them, and you can kind of like follow the trail by clicking on them and analyzing what they're doing, and clicking on another one and analyzing the new one, which conditions is evaluating. And you can basically rewire and reconnect these things, just like I will do in Miro by doing this. If I were to like take the arrow and rewire it to this one, you can do exactly the same thing in the state machine just by rewiring a scriptable object to another slot. I'm not going to do it right now because I might break it. But the idea is that, like we're using it for the character, we could use it for example, an NPC, or we could use it for other uses. The implementation that Davesky made is pretty generic, so it's really easy to make new types of transitions, of conditions and states and actions. I hope the explanation was kind of clear. I haven't shown the code. You will find the code as usual, inside the project. It's actually in a folder called State Machine. So if you want, you can go inside here and you can analyze how the code was constructed. And if you have questions, just come on the forums and ask Davesky directly. He might answer in the forum thread. The other thing I want to mention is, I think this is important to remember. We chose this solution for the state machine, but this doesn't mean that this solution is set in stone. Anyone can go in and improve this solution and make changes to it. So if you look at the solution and you think like, you know what, in this particular spot in the code, he could have made a different decision, then you can just create a new PR and suggest that decision. And if it makes a lot of sense, we will implement it. Why not?
Yeah.
Was it clear?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that actually it's the same for every solution that we have, like even for the events for the loading system or even for the wireframing. So until now, we are still taking in consideration the suggestion of the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that was again a great contribution. I really loved it. Took a while to integrate because again there were so many good alternate solutions. And actually, as I said many times, even though I'm quoting this person who made the final contribution, we want to recognize also the people who created the alternate solution. So we're gonna kind of like put them in the credits of the game as well, because we want to recognize the effort that these people made in making these PRs.
Yeah, totally. I think sometimes also it's good that people get inspired from each other's solution and like somehow try to improve it by seeing what other people suggested. And I loved also how you started by explaining why you picked up that solution, because even in the chat we got questions about how do you decide which PR to take for the infantry system or any system in the game. So I think it's a good way to show people it's not like it's hard to decide sometimes, and I think especially state machine it is.
These are like big decisions, right? They're very fundamental decisions. That's why we wanted to take some time to make them, because they will kind of like stay with us for a while, and it will be it will be tough to change them because they're very fundamental. But as we go forward, the decisions will be like slightly smaller.
Yeah, and as you said, we can always improve and adjust if needed throughout.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was taking a look at the questions. I don't think we have much stuff. Actually, there's a question from Odette Sharon. He says, what happens when there are two PRs for the same system? Like, for example, it's happening with the inventory. And, I kind of like already answered this. I mean, if you want to, Amel, you want to say it?
Yeah, totally. That's what I mentioned when you just like explained that when you started, like what was your approach to decide which pull request to take for the state machine. And I think it's the same for the different systems that we have in the game. So, yeah.
I think the key point there is for me and for you, when you choose a PR and schema, the bigger the PR is, the harder the decision is, right? So what we are always suggesting is please make small PRs, even though they might seem simple. Like somebody actually was, another question in the chat was, the inventory system is too simple. I'm like, nothing is too simple because we can expand it later. Like there's no functionality that is set in stone by just one PR. We will keep improving it, but if you make it simple at the beginning, then for me and for you, it's easier to choose between two alternate ones. So to answer directly that question, the key point is we will choose the one that we think is best. And then, if the PRs are huge, then it will take us longer to choose. Obviously, explaining PRs is also a big part of the factor, I think. If you just like drop the code into the PR, then we're like, okay, now I need to like look at the code. But if you explain it very well with examples, and some people made even like a video that was insane. It was super cool.
It was super nice, yeah.
Do we have other questions while I prepare the next steps?
I don't think that we have another question.
Yeah, I don't think, at least for this part.
So, what are we going to talk about now? So we've seen the event and loading, the state machine, and the UI.
We saw the
So-
wireframing on the UI from you. I think there's not much else to talk about in terms of like new stuff.
Mhm.
I also think we can start wrapping up, unless we have some more questions in the chat. I actually just saw one from same person from before. They ask, can you merge PRs faster so that the PRs don't get big over time? We can. We will do what we can. You know, like we're going as fast as we can.
And again, as you said, Chiro, like the smaller the PR is, the easier for us is to integrate that, you know, with, I would say, less risks. So
Yeah, and also
doing
like
it will take enough time to analyze it and, you know, test it and make sure that it doesn't break other parts.
yeah. Also, like we were a bit busy on these past 2 weeks with the whole like story situation and following the creation of the assets, the 3D assets, which I've shown before. I want to show them again. Where is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think, I think after this we should talk about the title, because if we talk about the story, we know that the story is now
Finalized.
not
Yes.
set in stone, but finalized a bit. So we changed it a bit, and now we will start the title choosing process.
Yeah, actually, and
Yeah.
we have started it, right? So
Yeah.
That's
Um,
like my favorite, I would say. My
So
favorite.
please vote.
should I show the results of the form?
I think not, because
No?
you might influence people. I don't know.
I mean, I think people will see anyway, like the top winning ones go to the next step, right? So maybe we could, I don't know. We let you decide, Chiro. You have a yes and a no, and now it's on you. The community knows who.
I think it's fun to see the responses.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I think so. Like we are transparency. I would say, like we show people.
Now,
what
also, like
happened
we're
there.
moving to the next stage, right? With the
Yeah.
with the voting. So let me show you the screen. So basically, what we're referring to is the fact that we're choosing the title, right? And we wanted to make this kind of like a community decision. So in this thread here, which is called Choose the Game Title, Voting Now, we have opened a survey, which is to choose the game title. And what we've done is we've collected all of the suggestions from the thread through this like past 3 weeks, put them in a form, and then people have been voting through this link for the last 3 or 4 days. And we actually have, so this is the form, and we actually have 79 responses. So as you can see, the form was asking, would you prefer a long or a short title? And then the which one would you prefer as the title of the game? And you could express like as many preferences as you want. And now we're gonna like compact these into a smaller list, and we're gonna vote for the final round. Just so you know, you wanna see some responses.
Yeah.
Let's see the ones that have been voted the most. So the first one is Chop Chop, which has 18 votes. Then we have
Yes.
Gastronaut, which has 15 votes. And I think the third one for now is Gourmet Quest with 14. And then we have we have A Taste for Adventure with 12. And A Pig's Tale, Swine and Dine. And yeah, with 11, and then Chef's Fable. So basically we have a few candidates, let's say. Now, the how do you say, the first ones here in this classification, we will put them into a new survey, and then you will be able to vote, and then we will choose the first one. So it's kind of like rounds of voting. So now we're doing the first round, and soon after this live stream, I will put a new form here to vote. Actually, should I close this one now? Should I close the voting?
No, we should let people from today
okay.
participate to it.
Yeah. So
If you
maybe.
wanna- So if
Yeah.
you want to vote right now, just go to the forums click on the thread called choose the game title, vote for the first round, and then in a couple of, maybe in 1 hour, I will put the new one on, and you will be able to vote for the actual title, and that's the one that is going to be the title of this game. So Open Projects Action Adventure will become that title.
Yeah. Really excited to see what.
Fingers crossed is a good title, because
Yeah.
otherwise I quit. I'll leave Amel and Shema on their own, and I quit.
Yeah.
No, I believe in the community. They will make the good choice.
And I think it's good now during the stream. More people are actually watching, and thank you all, by the way, for joining and watching. So people who didn't see the threads that we actually opened the vote, as Chiro said, we are leaving this for at least 1 hour to, for people who didn't see it yet, to do it now and vote before we go to the last round.
Yeah.
You can also, I think, find the link in the chat.
Yeah, Carol just posted that, so you can find the link on the chat.
So you can participate to it directly from there.
Great.
Nice. We're getting towards the end, right? We have shown the UI wireframing thanks to Shema. We have shown an event system based on scriptable objects thanks to Amel. I've shown the state machine contributed by our community.
Thanks to Chiro.
Thanks. So these were like the main pieces of the advances that we've done. We have seen the 3D art, which you're seeing on screen again. And actually, I wanted to mention something about the 3D art. Now that we have a few 3D models in, you can actually create yours. I asked on the forums, there's a thread called regarding art assets and music, and I asked people to wait because we wanted to define the art style a little bit. We wanted to define like the specifications for the characters, and some people, they were pretty angry. They were like, I want to make something now, and I'm sorry for that. We had to hold you for a little while. So there's a user called Andre. He was very annoyed. Andre, if you're listening, forgive me, forgive us, but you can make something now. So if you wanna, some way come back and contribute to this project, we will be super happy. Sorry for the wait. So you will find the assets in a branch on the repo, which is called Art Assets. Download those assets, take a look at how they're made, and make more, like anything you have on your mind. Cool.
Yeah.
And with this, I think we can move to the kind of like the final part where we show the next steps.
Yes.
So we have go back to the roadmap.
Are we revealing some new cards?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
So back to the roadmap. The roadmap, as usual, is the place where you can see what's happening, what's coming. And actually, I forgot about this question. I saw this question before. Somebody was asking about the game design of the game. The game design is here.
Oh, yeah.
It's also on the roadmap. So you'll find it in here. The story, you can consult the story here, description of the characters. And then obviously here you have a bunch of tasks which we are working on. And the ones with the little blue icon is the community is working on them. So we have a bunch of PRs open for all of these things. We have some tasks which we are reserving to ourselves, the ones with the black Unity icon. As you can see, it says team. So these ones are like reserved to us. Again, like the main character, some things we want to keep them for ourselves. And then there's like gray cards, which are the ones that nobody has volunteered to make yet. So yeah, I want to add a few new tasks. And I want to do that by going to the open projects. I will never find it. No, this is the public one. Let me...
Come on.
One second.
She was doing some like suspense, I would say, to make you feel the weight. And
So
I
I'm
think
going.
we are
Sorry?
there. We are there. We are
We're
getting there.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the private section of the roadmap, right? So you have the public one, which looks like this, and the private one is basically the same. But here I have another deck of cards, and I wanted to pull in a few new items, basically, and actually want to comment them as I put them in the roadmap. So one thing we wanted to kind of like unlock and we need is imagining some things which are not included in the concept art we made. So for example, since the story changed, now we have a town and we have a festival of cooking. And how does that look like? I don't know. You know, and the concept artist we hired before hasn't made concepts. So we need to imagine this new thing that happens in the game, these new locations. So one of the tasks that I would love people's help is concept art of the town and the festival. And associated with this, concept art of the cooking utensils, because now the cooking aspect is so big in the game that we need some kind of visualization of these cooking utensils. And I don't expect people to make, you know, like, I don't, what we're saying is we're not asking you to make like super complex concept art. Anything is fine. Even like line drawings, super okay, you know, and I'm actually gonna want to make some of them myself, especially on the cooking utensils. I want to make an Italian mocha pot, which doesn't need much concept art, to be fair. But yeah, so the idea here is, I actually linked some stuff, is to produce something like this, even like simpler, right? Like this is a concept art by this artist, Stephanie Carey. And this is already like some kind of quality, but if you see this kind of like technical drawing, that's super simple. And I mean, this is good quality, don't get me wrong. But this is kind of like the stuff that we are looking for. So don't be scared, you know, if you're not super good at drawing, you can still jump in and just make something. And associated with these cards, we also have some new forum threads, which are going to be open soon, where you can drop your ideas. So concept art goes into the 2D, right? I'll put it in, or do we put it in design? 2D design?
I think 2D.
2D, Amel?
I'm like
50-50.
Yeah,
3D.
let's split the card in two.
Come on.
Yeah, let's put it in 2D maybe. Okay, it's fine.
2D, okay. So I'll put this once in 2D. Then we also need, again, because the story changed, some help with naming characters and places. So for instance, the legendary chef of the town, I call it Fry King, but it's not necessarily called like that, you know, it's not fixed in stone. So what is this character called? Up to you. Does the bard hair have a name? Up to you. And then the new characters, the town folk, the ones that now populate this town, do they have a name? I think so. And like, I'm also thinking of individual names for the individual characters. So and I reserve one for myself. Don't try to suggest this, but one of them has to be called Gourmando. my decision. But please suggest more. Shema, can I put this one in design?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'll put this one in design and narrative. And then we have a few tasks for graphic artists and technical artists. We have effects in the game, and I think many of these effects should be shaders. So we have, for example, well, very simple one, transparency support for the main shader. We need some transparency for the lantern of the character, of the pig, because the lantern will incorporate the phoenix chick, so we need some transparency on the shader. So that's one thing, and I'm gonna put that into effects and particles, maybe?
Yeah.
Or maybe, no, sorry, 3D and shading.
3D.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
true.
And then we need also emission support for the shader. So for instance, the same phoenix chick has to glow, or the eyes of the critters have to glow. So we also need this one. Using the card, I'll put it into 3D and shading as well, I guess. I don't know. I'll sort them later. We need a water shader because the island is surrounded by water. So we need some kind of shader for the water. And I'm imagining a shader that has like, kind of like a water movement like this, and maybe the water moves up and down. It doesn't need to be too complicated. But that's another task that we need to tackle. And I'll put this into shading as well. I'll put it in here.
So actually, someone asked if the threads for these cards will be open today.
Yeah. Some of them actually link to the same. So for example, for the transparency support, the thread links to the same Toon Shader thread that's already in progress. Because I didn't think it was worth to split the conversation. But for others, we will make new threads, which are actually just hidden for now. So they've already been created. And then more effects. We need one effect, which is burn disappear, because the Phoenix Chick is able to like burn plants and canes and bamboo canes and stuff like that. So the idea is to have an effect which you have an object, and then when the effect kicks in, the object kind of like disintegrates and burns away. And that can be done in a shader. I have a vague idea of how to make it, but I think it would be nice to see also contributions on this. So I'll put these in effects and particles. Yes. And another shader which allows us to have the classic like sway effect with the wind for plants and leaves. And I'll put this one also in effects and particles. And that's it. This is another card that was left there. So we have a bunch of new tasks. We have some tasks which are still open. We're going to go over some PRs soon. Like the inventory system is pretty much good to go. There's a couple of very good audio systems as well. Seen them?
Yeah.
And then we need to take a look at these PRs. They're pretty old, and sorry for that, but sometimes some things we don't want to integrate them before we have other things. So there's kind of like an order. And actually, that's why if you see these cards, they're under the no rush category. So cards are ordered by priority. So when you see that it says no rush, it means that there's no rush. That's it. We have releases decks. So we had like the one where we unveiled the project. This was last live stream. This is this live stream, what we have today. So you can track what we've done. And soon we're going to create a new one for the next live stream, which is in 2 weeks.
Yes. And actually talking about artists and technical artist tasks, we have a question if we are using URP and SGRP, and we want to remind that we are using URP in this project.
Yep.
Also, I think another question is it mandatory to use shader graph? And I think that,
Yes, because I'm the dictator on this. No. I mean, I
think.
Amel, sorry.
I was just going to say that the fact that we are using URP, which is an SRP, it allows us to use shader graph. So why not? I'm like, we could use shader graph, and I really think it's powerful and it's easy to understand for everyone. So yeah, and you can still inject some HLSL code if you want to do that inside shader graph, sorry.
which you're doing already, right, in the Toon Shader. Yeah. But actually, I if I'm reading into this question, I think what they're saying is they love to write shaders with code. If you want to write, for example, the water shader, right? If you want to write water shader with code, please do. The key point of shader graph was that now that we have the Toon Shader made with shader graph, we can create these alternate effects with shader graph. So all of the effects that I've shown before that are here, like burn or the wind shader, we can now add them on top of the original Toon shading, just because it's shader graph. So that's a really nice opportunity. But if somebody's super used to code, and you wanna go ahead, try.
Yeah. And
Other questions? Can you cook with the Phoenix chick? That's actually that's actually one of the ideas, right?
Yeah, the Phoenix would be used to as fire to burn something. So yeah, we will be using the Phoenix as something to use to cook.
I think in the original story, the Phoenix chick was the thing that allowed you to create like the final recipe, and maybe that's still gonna be the case. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
But it will be fun actually to use it for every cooking activity. Somebody's, yeah, it will just rise from the ashes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we don't have any other questions for now.
Not for now, no. So we're getting towards the end. Yeah, somebody was asking also, like, what's the tool that we're using for the roadmap? It's called Codex. It's also a free tool, and it's kind of like a project management tool. And it gives you this super cool interface with decks and cards. And you have like, actually you also have like a milestone view, which you will never see because it's not in the public one, but I have it here, which shows me all the live streams that we're going to do. And you can assign cards to those milestones. You can have like a hand, which means that like I'm holding these cards in my hand, which means that I'm like keeping an eye on them. And as you can see, it reminds me of the last milestone, the closest milestone, which is today, which is the live stream that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And then it has a public face, so you can make these roadmaps, these kind of like projects public, and we're using it to show the roadmap to everyone. And this is what you can use to take a look at the tasks on the project. Pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Questions. Will the pig be able to cook pork? No, that's forbidden. He's vegetarian.
We've got a question. Are there small, tiny tasks we can tackle? So probably other than the tasks that we revealed in the Codex now in the roadmap, we can still, adjust maybe the previous ones, or like reviewing the current pull requests, or proposing small suggestions could be as well like a small task to contribute.
Totally.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, you showed one with the PR from Charles Machina, the one where he customized the inspector of the scene, right? Or the scene, game scene scriptable object. There was this one that I wanted to show, actually. Let me show you just very quickly. It's a PR from a user called Running Vilan, I guess. Yeah. And they basically saw a mistake in the code, which was like pretty good suggestion. Change the file, and this is the the change. They just added like a bunch of event keywords to a bunch of Unity action variables. That's it. So as you can see, like there's really like all the range of scope for changes, as long as they're useful. Please don't just like add spaces or new lines to the files. Then we will reject them. But this was like a good suggestion, and it totally took them maybe 15 minutes to make, right? So pretty good contribution from Running Vilan.
Yeah, that looks great. We have a question, another question. Can I help as an environmental artist? And I think actually we are getting more and more active, I would say, in the greyboxing thread. We also wanted to work on some concept art for the different environments, including the beach, the forest, etc. So totally you can help on this, and feel free to go to the level design and greyboxing threads in the Unity forum.
There's actually, I want to show you the contribution from the user called It's Leviosa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's this one. So they made this video to show the white boxing of a level. So they started from the Miro map, the diagram, and then they explain like the reasoning behind it, right?
Yeah.
And then they did the white boxing, and from the beginning, when the character like leaves the boat that they used to get to the island, and then they recreated, like they imagined like the beginning of the game and how the beach is laid out, right? So they
Can
show,
you
like, the-
actually, Chiro, can you remove the music? I think that they are hearing
Sure,
it.
yeah, sorry. They put some very what do you say,
Cool music.
trolly music. That's quite fun. But you can see how they visualized the beach environment, and I think it's super cool. You know, it's like super rough, but it gives you an idea of the scale. That's actually something very useful for me as well, to imagine like the scale of the elements. You know, when I was making the character controller, I was like, how high does the character have to jump? I don't know. You know, and now I can have a better understanding thanks to the white boxing that this user has made. It's Leviosa.
yeah.
Super active user, by the way. So thank you for the tons of contributions in the story thread. It's super cool to see people like coming back to the forums like over and over again through the weeks.
Yeah.
So as you can see, they used like placeholders for characters, placeholder text, and then they imagine this ramp which goes up to the town. It's quite epic start of the game. And then the super cool thing is that they also shot the video from the other point of view, so they go back down.
Yeah.
And that also gives you like an overview of the island from afar. I think it's super cool contribution. Thanks.
I really like that as well. It's really super nice to see things like put together, and that's something we start in the Grey Boxing as well thread. So yeah,
I'm
this is
seeing
really
some sketches as well. Super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to catch up with this thread. This happened like maybe an hour ago or something. Okay, cool.
Yeah. When we just figured out that we had a live.
Yes.
Cheers.
Another question is whether we can use animation rigging in the project. I think we could. Yes, we haven't introduced it yet in the package. Yeah, we have introduced the package in the project because I want to remind that please don't add new packages. We will do it. But we will. I think we will.
Yeah.
I was reading the comment about the music of the video. Yes, it was Shooting Stars from Backriders, classic meme song.
Song, yeah. But we love memes. I guess.
Yeah, Brian says I can sketch. This will be easy for me. Anything really, like when it comes to visualizing environments and concept art, just don't think that we are expecting, some kind of like grandiose concept with like colors and stuff. It can be just a sketch. Okay, cool. I think we're getting towards the end.
Yeah.
Somebody's actually asking, I think they joined just now, what are we doing here? If we're reviewing something or making a game. Yes, we are. Just as a small recap, we are looking at something called the Open Projects. It's an initiative by Unity where Unity makes a game together with the community. And we're working on the first project, which looks like this. This is the art. And this is the concept art for the game. And we don't have a title for this game yet, as we said, but we're working on it. And
Come to the forums and vote for the title.
Yeah.
You have 1 hour until the second round.
Yes.
Okay, so in 1 hour I close the form. Okay. So I think also to frame like the time, right? We started a month ago. Did we?
Yeah.
It was the 30th of September. So the 30th of September, we unveiled the project and the initiative. People flooded in. And then 2 weeks ago, we did the first live stream. And then another 2 weeks that we're here. Still a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
What's the estimated date?
Tomorrow.
Nah, sure.
With the white boxing.
What's the estimated date when we finish this project? Actually, there's a question right now in the chat.
Probably by end of March, maybe.
Yeah, that's more or less what we hope. It's I think it's deceiving. Like some people will say, like looks like a very long time from now, but that's what it takes to make. I wouldn't say full games, but relatively chunky experience like the one we're trying to create. So we want to produce something which will last like maybe 15-20 minutes of gameplay, and we want to make it look nice and play nice and sound nice as well. We're working with a sound designer as well to bring some super nice music. So it takes time.
Animations as well too.
Animation, there's so many parts to it, and then the integration of it all is gonna be something. So yeah, it's gonna take some time. We're still at the beginning of this journey, and that's why this show is called Open Projects: The Journey, right? Any final words?
Sure.
Any final questions?
I think I saw a question about ProBuilder and asking maybe about the video that we showed from It's Leviosa, if it was made using ProBuilder. I guess so. It was using ProBuilder. I think in the post he or she mentioned that. So you can use ProBuilder and Polybrush if you want to try some gray boxing. That's like the tools to start with.
Looks like ProBuilder to me.
Yes, it is ProBuilder.
I think so.
I know ProBuilder.
And ProBuilder is in the project, so you're totally allowed to use it.
We have the package included, so feel free to use it. And
just as a small note, why we're using some package instead of other packages. What packages are we going to use? I want to remind everyone that for this project we're staying on 2019.4 LTS, so it's the long-term support version of Unity, which means that it's super solid and we can focus on making the game, and we don't have to deal with any beta functionality, which is cool, but we don't need right now. So we're gonna restrict ourselves to just the packages that are compatible with 19.4.
Totally.
Any last questions?
I think we don't have some, but let's remind them that if they have any question, they can do it on the forums. There are many threads. They can open a new thread if they have a new proposition, and they can see everything that we have in the roadmap on Codex.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome.
So just to show the this is the video from It's Leviosa, but just to show the 3 locations of the project. I lost it. Oh yes, it's here. Sorry. The 3 locations of the project are the repository, where the project lives, the roadmap, which is on Codex, and the forum, which is here. So this is the roadmap to see like the progress and to see the tasks that you can work on, and then the forum is to discuss and talk with the other people, the other users and contributors about like the different tasks, and you can also like propose new things, of course. I think we're pretty much at the end of today's live stream. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna stop the microphones and the cameras, but we're gonna hang out in the chat on YouTube for another maybe 10 minutes. So feel free to chat with us. And if there's no like final questions.
Going once, going twice.
There's one question from Rick McMichael. He says, well, it's not really a question. He says, we'd love to see a more dynamic voting system for new features or different categories so Unity users can vote on them. And those that get more votes to be implemented could be a good dev guide. Yes. The thing is, and this is, like you can argue about this, but like here we're also acting a bit as referees in some way. So we need to give this project a direction. It's a community project for sure, but we need to make sure that we also get to the end. And sometimes if you leave the vote to many people, they will come up with many ideas because everybody has a different idea, right? And then integrating all these ideas can prove very challenging. So we are trying to restrict, and as I said before, the length of a game project is deceiving. You think that you're going to take like 3 months and it takes you 6 months. You think that it's going to take you a year and it takes you 4 years. And some indie developers made very small games in 6 years or more. So here we want to really keep it like as small as possible. That's why we don't call it a full game. We call it a vertical slice. And that's why
show us how you say it, Chiro. Vertical slice.
And that's why we don't want to just like open up for voting on any feature. But we have a set of features that we identified, and then we accept suggestions on how to make those features. But and of course you can always suggest like a new effect or a new area in the game or something like that. But we're not gonna accept suggestions like let's put machine learning in the game, or let's now make the game with like physics or something like that. There's some things which we cannot accept because otherwise the project will just like derail and become like a huge thing. Another question which was interesting by Ellie Collignati. She asks, would you encourage side initiatives to help people create something even if it's not on the main cards, or will they distract you? For example, music. Can people write music even if it's not like in the roadmap? Yeah, totally. The only thing with music and art, as I said before, is we want to give it a direction. So we're working with some musician to come up with some theme song. And then what we want to do is we want to open up that theme song to the community. Sorry, not only the theme song, but a couple of songs that she's going to write. Open it to the community, and people can make like remixes or a battle theme or variations on it and new themes as well. And then we can like put them all in the game. Again, it's kind of like giving a direction and then letting people join on that train if you want.
Yeah, like we did for the 3D.
Exactly, like we did for the 3D art. It's not like we don't want people to make art, it's just that we don't want to start by crowdsourcing. We want to give a direction and then crowdsource. We think that that's going to give a bit more of a cohesive style to the visual style and, how do you say? Audio style? Sound style? Auditory style?
The same style.
Genre maybe, yeah. What do you, John?
Will URP be used instead of the default RP? Yes, we are using URP. Can we suggest a direction in the forums? Of course, you can suggest. I'm not saying that you can't. It's just like some macro decisions are already set in stone.
Yeah.
And never forget that this project is also open source, so it means that all the assets are available to you to use, to take, to manipulate. So this is our kind of like repo, right? And then you can spin off like your version if you wanted. I mean, I think if I was you, I would spin off the version like once we're finished, not now, but because otherwise you have to construct like the game yourself. But in 5-6 months, we're gonna have something very nice, I think. And then you can put your spin on it. If you want to add physics, if you want to add machine learning, it's yours to take and use.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this song. Can I put this song a bit louder?
Shiro always forgets that we're not hearing them.
Yeah, but the the viewers can hear them.
Yeah. So I think that we can now turn off our cameras and our microphones and just chill in the chat for 10-15 minutes.
Yes, and we're gonna keep replying to your questions, so please feel free to like keep typing questions. We're gonna be there. We're just gonna be there on voice on our camera.
Yeah.
Cool, and we'll see you in another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here with some more progress, some more art, some more code, some more PR, some more issues. GitHub issues, not like normal issues. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for following this second episode. See you
Thanks,
in 2 weeks.
everyone.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.